Today, we're diving into a story of pure survival. And honestly, a bit of rebellion down in the lower levels of the mega city. It's an explainer all about resilience, human connection, and what actually happens when we choose to spark a little joy in a world full of failing tech and endless concrete. So let's just jump right in. So think about this. What happens when you lose literally everything you rely on, but you just choose to smile anyway? I mean, it's super easy to be upbeat when the neon's buzzing and the credits are flowing freely, right? But the real test? That comes when the city's grid completely fails and the storm hits. Keep this question in mind because it frames the entire journey of this incredible survivor we're focusing on today. Her name is Lotha. Our story kicks off way down in the shadowed, super crowded lower sectors of the city. Now, Lotha didn't have a fancy high-rise hab, a working hover car, or, some secret cache of digital credits to fall back on. But what she lacked in cyber wealth, man, she completely made up for it in spirit. Down in a sector that is basically defined by cold metal and towering industrial shadows, she had an incredibly big heart and this bright smile that just cut right through the gloom. Let's break down the mechanics of Lotha's daily hustle. Every single cycle, before the sector's artificial sun even booted up, she was out there sourcing these synthetic bioluminescent flowers. They ran on these tiny little power cells, offering this rare, beautiful burst of color in a pretty gray world. She'd set up her spot right by the roadside transit hubs, selling glowing garlands to exhausted commuters. Her credit earnings were microscopic, sure, but she lived with such abundant gratitude, always polite and always thankful for whatever the cycle brought her way. But hey, we all know the status quo in the megacity never actually lasts, right? Enter the toxic acid monsoons. And we're not just talking about a passing shower here. The district's climate control systems totally failed, locking the sky into this permanent, gloomy gray. The streets flooded with chemical runoff, and Lotha's super delicate synthetic inventory was just completely exposed to the harsh elements. Just look at how this pressure compounds. Day 1, you've got this soft acidic drizzle. Annoying for sure, but manageable. But then day 2 hits. The drainage systems totally back up, flooding the alleys. And by day 3, it's an absolute disaster. Her bioluminescent flowers short out. They go totally soggy, sales flatline at 0. Commuters are just rushing by under reinforced umbrellas, heads down, completely ignoring her, while she sits there in wet clothes, watching her only livelihood literally wash into the city's gutters. So this brings us to a huge turning point. She's staring down 0 sales, freezing rain, and completely ruined tech. I mean, for a second, she genuinely wanted to give up. And honestly, who wouldn't? But instead of succumbing to the absolute misery of the lower levels, she made this deliberate, conscious pivot. She looked at all the angry, rushing, freezing people around her and decided, you know what? I'm going to be the light in this smog. Her whole pivot is basically summed up by one profound thought. They need a smile more than I need a sale. Just let that sink in for a second. In her moment of absolute financial despair, her empathy just completely overrode her basic survival instinct. She recognized that this system failure wasn't just happening to her, it was crushing everyone else too. So she literally stands up in the middle of this toxic downpour and just starts giving away her remaining flickering bioflowers and power cells for absolutely free. She's telling people to just take one and smile. And the reactions? They are incredible. A little girl stops, giggles, and sort of steps into Latha's warmth. It's almost as if her kindness created a literal glowing force field right in the middle of a miserable storm. There's this one interaction that really stands out. A commuter is rushing by, drops his comms device straight into the toxic sludge, and just screams in pure frustration. Now, instead of backing away, Lotha steps right up to him and offers him a glowing yellow blossom. She says, "Maybe the day is bad, but you're not. It will pass." It's an absolute masterclass in breaking someone's negative programming. The guy's anger just totally diffused, and he walked away quietly into the neon haze. All right, so a few days pass, and the atmospheric scrubbers finally manage to clear the clouds. Lotha is back at her usual spot when this guy approaches her holding a secure data folder and a digital key. He introduces himself as Vikos. Turns out he was one of those anonymous faces who had silently taken one of her wet, flickering flowers during the absolute worst of the deluge. Vikos starts explaining his situation. And man, his internal reality was basically a complete system overload. On the exact day he walked past Lotha, his tech supply corp was sinking, his father was in a medical ward, and his mental bandwidth was just pushed to the absolute breaking point. He was battling an internal storm that was way worse than the acid rain outside. But he tells her exactly why he came back to find her. He says, You said the rain may fall, but we must keep blooming. Vikas explains that her wet flower and those specific words completely reprogrammed his outlook. Even amidst all the cold, automated machinery of the city, that tiny act of kindness gave him the strength to reboot and keep fighting. He promised himself that if he recovered his credits, he was going to help someone else rise. Which brings us back to that digital key he was holding. Turns out, Vikas had actually secured a lease on a small storefront right there in the neon slums, like an actual physical space with a functioning roof and a neon sign. He handed the access codes directly over to Lotha. When she protested, saying she had 0 credits for rent, he just told her not to worry about it. She could pay it back when her network expanded. He literally just wanted her to stay dry so she could keep spreading her light. With this tiny, shielded space, her bioflowers actually stayed charged. And more importantly, her customers stayed dry. Smiling Flowers quickly became this total beacon in the sector. But here's the best part. She didn't hoard this blessing. She scaled her operation. She hired 2 women from the lower levels who desperately needed work, teaching them not just how to maintain the synthetic blooms, but how to treat the city's residents with genuine warmth. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. Cycles pass, and inevitably, the atmospheric scrubbers fail again. Another toxic, stormy morning rolls in. This sets up such a beautiful, cyclical narrative structure that really hammers home the core system protocol of our explainer today. The parallel here is just wild. We all remember Lotha from years ago, right? Freezing, hopeless, her inventory completely shorted out by the storm. And now, standing right outside Lotha's shop today, is a young girl in the exact same predicament, drenched clothes, holding a basket of ruined blooms, just looking entirely defeated by the crushing weight of the city.
Lotha just steps right out into the acid rain and says, "Come in, child. Let's not let the rain stop us." And when the girl is just sobbing that her inventory is ruined and no one will transfer credits for them, Lotha simply smiles. She says, "Then let's give them away with love. You never know whose core they may touch." She takes the exact protocol she learned and passes it straight forward to the next generation. This right here perfectly illustrates what we call the ripple effect. Step 1, you endure a massive system failure, but you actively choose a positive override. Step 2, even when your own resources are depleted, you share what little you have left. In Lotha's case, failing flowers and a kind word. And step 3, the network rewards you in completely unexpected ways, allowing this beautiful feedback loop to repeat itself over and over. So let's pull out the core truths from Lotha's whole journey. First up, the city is always going to have storms and systemic crashes, right? That's just a given. Second, we always retain the ultimate administrative power to choose our response. And third, much like a glowing wireframe in the dark, a positive mindset isn't just some fluffy concept. It provides the actual, tangible energy required to rise above the static. And that leads us to a really vital definition of what true positivity actually is. Because look, it's not some naive erasure or denial of your reality. Lotha knew full well her resources were depleted. Rather, it's the endurance to withstand a hostile environment. And in doing so, you plant the code for unexpected miracles. It's how you weather the crash that determines what reboots after it passes. Which leaves us with this final thought to carry with you. The system crashes, they're going to come. The acid rain is going to fall. But when it does, how will you choose to respond? Will you let the storm short out your spirit, or will you keep your light on? Thank you so much for joining me for